So click that.
Thank you so much. Okay, hi everyone again. Thanks so much for joining. We're starting our webinar. And before we started, just a few words. My name is Dina. I'm a community manager at Crowdfunder. And I'll just say a very short, tell you a very short intro about Crowdfunder. It will only take a minute, so please stay tuned. Thank you again for joining this webinar with our guest speaker, Pam. And as you might know, we are running a series of TTRPG focused webinars, and the first one in December by Leon Barilaro. And you can actually watch the recording on Creator Hub. I'll share the link in the chat in a minute. And today is the second webinar with Pam. Thank you, Pam, so much for being our guest speaker. We will also have more webinars for TTRPG creators in March and April, so please stay tuned. So can you move to the next slide, please? So Crowdfunder is a creator-friendly crowdfunding platform, and it's actually free. We have free pricing models, and yes, one of them is free. We have powerful functionality. We always put people and planet first. You can get started right away on Crowdfunder. It only takes a couple of steps to get started. It's very user-friendly and easy. And you can run any size campaigns on Crowdfunder. And on the next slide, I'll tell you about the Creator Hub. So I'll share the link. As I said, you can join our free resource for creators. It's called Creator Hub. We post our webinar recordings in there. We have networking events, and you will find different crowdfunding toolkits in there that you might find helpful. And the next slide says that we are running right now, as I said, TTRPG focused webinars. It's a series of webinars, so please stay tuned. And we're also running the Tabletop Nonstop Spotlight right now. So if you would like to see the updates and stay informed about our webinars, our free bonuses, spotlights that we run, subscribe to our social media accounts. I'll share the links in the chat, and we will be happy to see you as part of our community. And Pam, the floor is yours. As promised, I took only 1 minute, so without further ado.
Okay, hi everyone. So I am Pam Punzalan. You might know me as Pamu, Pammu, or the Dovetailer on Twitter. I am a award-winning and nominated designer, editor, consultant, and I guess the new term these days is advocate or community builder. One of the nicknames I earned through some circles was I am the beloved battering ram of #RPGC. The hashtag represents role-playing games Southeast Asia. Contrary to popular belief, it is not a big shadow organization. It's literally a hashtag where people from Southeast Asia, either located there or from the diaspora, are free to use that hashtag and use it to represent communities or their own platforms. You just put it on your profile with any flag you want, if you want the flag, and congratulations, you're RPGC. And I wanted to note, because I noted that we like to share personal information here, is that if I'm not busy with work and I'm not busy with something else, I'm usually in FF14 and I'm usually there a lot. And you will likely see evidence of that later, because I'm going to make it about FF14 in my talk as we go through. So I wanted to give a quick outline of what we were going to discuss here, because I know that this is all about building communities, and part of building communities is also having a sense of platform and how people do it, because as creators, there is an increased pressure. I wouldn't actually say need to have a platform, a community of some sort, and or both, I guess. So as I mentioned to a few of you who may follow me, a lot of these might come off as tangents, but I promise that they're all related. So first, I'm going to go through some possibly hard truths, and then I'm going to share some thoughts I have about building personal platforms. I'm also going to share tips or tricks that I've reflected upon deeply ever since I started in 2019. And I'm also going to share some methods of self-care that I found to be super effective for myself. So, truth number one is a question. Are you here for passion or are you here to survive? Note that sometimes the answer is both. Doing TTRPGs work because you want to, but can otherwise afford to do other things, is very different from engaging in the work as livelihood. And this difference I've noticed tends to inform everything. It informs how you feel on the daily. It informs how much pressure you feel to engage or create your own community. It even informs, I guess, your own sense of need to produce something new, quote unquote, every given time period. Like some creators feel like they need to produce a work once a month, especially if they have a Patreon. Other creators are like, it's fine. I'll just make something when I feel like it. While others might feel like they have to make something new at an increased regular pace, not even just a month, but like week by week, they have to engage in something, right? And due to the nature of our industry, a lot of that is because money, whether you like money and it's convenient to have more or you need it on a regular basis. Now, related to that is understanding that your peers in the space all have different responses to this question is essential, because that is part of many people's motivation to do things like freelance work or set up their own projects or engage or disengage in community spaces. So this is a question that I'd encourage any creator to answer semi-regularly for themselves. Passion or survival or both? If it's both, what's the so-called percentage that you're playing with? Then next hard truth. I really want to tell everybody again that there's no such thing as too much of a game or system or supplement. In fact, I find it very counterproductive whenever the discourse comes up and people say things like, oh no, not another Powered by the Apocalypse game, or oh gosh, I'm so tired of more D&D supplements. It doesn't help anybody to hear that. Full stop. It just makes some people feel bad. And I know that sounds trite, but feeling bad is usually a spiral into you not creating or wanting to create, which means that you don't get your work out there, which means that likely you're going to be very unhappy. So it just doesn't help. So I'm going to say here, even if there was somehow some kind of amazing metric in existence that could somehow measure if there was something, too much of something, it doesn't fucking matter. So work on what you want to work on, because you're going to be fine. It might not always feel that way. People might try to bring you down about that, but it's a work in progress to always rehearse to yourself. It doesn't matter whether there's too much of something or too little. Now, the other hard truth. Time is money, and your finest tool or weapon, as I prefer to say, is yourself. Every time you don't take care of your tool, that means that you're wasting money. And that's a very capitalist way of putting it, I guess, but like let's break it down in a nicer fashion. Investing in yourself means that you're growing that pool of resources, opportunities, and energy. And it's just all around a good thing, I feel. So time is money. Your best tool to get that money and sustain the money, which also helps with building your community and also helps with your own level of happiness. It just all checks out in a nice way, I feel. Also, this is a little paradigm that I wanted to share with everybody. You will likely never have equal amounts of these three things: energy, opportunities for creation, for self-promotion, for openings that are necessary in your network, And on the more personal front, opportunities to take care of yourself, to spend time with your family, to be with a loved one, to learn something new, to pick up your favorite show, to go into MMORPG, and resources, mental space, emotional reserves, tools, money, that sort of thing. You'll never have an equal amount of any of that, right? So whenever you do an assessment when it comes to making a game or preparing your community, try to consider like where you're at here with those three things: energy, opportunities, resources. I would argue that the matter of opportunity requires you to be prepared, and preparedness kind of relies on energy and resources. So the trick, I feel, is to balance your energy and resources the most, because you want to be ready and you want to feel ready for that opportunity to build something, right? Okay, so hard truths out of the way. Hope that gave something to reflect on for everybody. And I wanted to share now my thoughts on building a personal platform. Now, I'm always going to remind people that this is my personal opinion. I'm not sure whether it's going to work for you, but it absolutely worked for me. And some of these things in this section and the last section were advice that I got from people who have made it in their own way and are still striving to uplift themselves and others and do better with their projects on a daily basis. So I guess I come from uninformed, nuanced opinion, but again, like there's no like cookie cutter thing for success in TTRPGs, especially. So note that your audience always exists and it's just a matter of finding them. And sometimes, in fact, likely for a long time while you're getting started, your only audience is yourself, which is very novel comic book, other industry in terms of revelation, but it's a hard fact. So you kind of have to please yourself at first, or be at a level of comfort and confidence to go like, okay, I can release this into the wild, finish is better than perfect, et cetera, right? And also, okay, I'm going to go back to that. Finish is better than perfect. So for those of you who are fussing over your latest fantasy heartbreaker, and you know in your bones you got to release it, but you're feeling really weird about it, rehearse right now. Finish is better than perfect. If you let it go, you'll find more opportunities. But anyway, different platforms have different demographics. Now, you'll notice that I talk a lot about platform and community, even though they're like separate, but not really. Discord, for example, as a community would be super different than if, let's say, you had like a website, a forum that you could have everybody hang out in. And on the other side of social media stuff, Twitter is obviously a totally different ball game from, let's say, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatnot. And I also wanted to emphasize, like, let's take Discord and other community spaces out of the picture here and focus on Twitter, Facebook, Hive, et al. Nearly all platforms are designed to make you feel like you're missing out or moving too slow. It's the essence of FOMO. We are in the century of fear of missing out here. So more often than not, it's not you, it's the algorithm. And that sounds kind of tin hat, because there's a longer discussion here to be found in like what exactly does an algorithm do and how do we trick it or how do we inform it. But like, I'm not an expert there. I want to go into it. Maybe you can invite me for another talk. I don't know. Please remember that you should never seek out a platform for its numbers. Seek out a platform that plays to your strengths and mitigates your weaknesses. For example, I am not on TikTok because TikTok means that I have to make video content. So on a personality level, contrary to popular belief, I'm very camera shy. It already takes a lot for me to be on camera, especially if it's an online presentation where I cannot measure micro expressions or tone and see if people are really engaged or like doing some other thing. It's super hard for me. So the thought of generating constant real-time videos and showing a small window of my life to other viewers, I just can't do it, right? And Twitter, on the other hand, is short form, immediate gratification with privacy settings at present that make it a lot less intimate than, let's say, my Facebook. So I made my bread and butter as a creator on Twitter because it has all of the little things that suit me. It might not suit you, but it suits me. So I've worked very hard to make that platform work for me. I acknowledge that it has some limitations, but it's better that I go to a platform, as I said, that helps me and also helps my mental space, which might sound funny given that Twitter's not all that great and neither are other platforms at times, but that's how it is. So again, do not seek a platform for its numbers. Seek one that seems to suit your style as a creator. I mean, I know some creators who just hang out on Reddit all day and they engage in the forum thing, and then they don't feel too drowned out by the fact that, like, I think RPG Reddit has about 1.5 million people. They don't feel that sense, and it's text-based and it's low impact, and they just like the community altogether. Other creators now really love Mastodon, and then they just use a newsletter to tell people, hey, you know, this is what I'm doing, right? It's all about what you can manage as a creator, especially if you are the majority of us where you don't have somebody managing your socials. Okay, so the next concept is voice versus brand. Please remember, I am not a marketing specialist. I am not an ads girl. There's probably some formal definition here and I am utterly butchering it, but here you go. Your voice is an approximation of who you are as present, like as a presence online. Your brand is a collection of things or actions that you want to be associated with. So your voice is a facet of yourself, as raw and untuned as you could possibly make it, given that whenever you post, whether it's in your community spaces of Discord, Reddit, etc., or in your platform spaces of Twitter, Instagram, et al., there's still a level of curation and self-checking that you do there more often than not, but it's as close to authentic as possible. At least that's the ideal that we should be getting to. Whereas your brand are things like, what kind of games do I want people to think of when they think of me? What kind of emojis do I use enough that people just associate it with me now? Do I want to be the cat girl on Twitter? Do I want to be the person who always talks about body horror and stuff? Like, what is your brand? What are the top things that you're hoping in the future someone will go like, that's Pam, or yep, that's me. So part of my branding, just to bring it back all the way to my intro, is beloved battering ram of RPGC. Catchy, cute, makes people ask questions. Also gives me an opportunity to connect with you if ever you ask me, where did you come up with that? And then you get to know me through my own voice as I respond to you. So voice, brand. And also intent versus impact. That's a big thing whenever you try to talk to people or respond to people or whatnot. Remember that you're never really going to be able to measure impact in its full. And that's why you have to be very careful and cognizant of your intent whenever you post something or engage with your community or talk to somebody a certain way, right? So intent, I'd argue, is something deeply, deeply important, because the last thing that any creator wants to do is have really good intentions, but because they didn't consider all the possibilities, or they didn't, I hesitate to use this, but it's the closest I can think of, empathy, I guess, to really measure how that would affect people. The consequences for those around you or yourself could be pretty bad. Also, always remember, social media platforms are not built for nuance nor long-term retention. Full stop. Okay. If you're expecting people to glean your words or whatnot, 9 times out of 10, it's just not going to happen. And on that last point, what can be taken out of context will be taken out of context because people are messy. Note that I said messy, not malicious. Contrary to popular belief, few people go on social media and decide, I'm going to be an asshole. Of course, there are types like that, right? But most people will just not get it, or most people will just make an earnest mistake or read too much into something or too little, whatever. We're messy, we're human, we make mistakes, we make presumptions, we tend to expect certain things of certain folks because we have our own blinders and perceptions of how the world works and how people talk. Last of this section, I think, always seek to be true to your voice. Then use your platform or platforms to curate your brand. If you think you have to change yourself in order to sell, you will never be happy. Now, I'm a big proponent of slow, authentic growth rather than I got to catch this trend, or I got to look a certain way, or I have to do a certain thing or follow the crowd. You're going to exhaust yourself doing the social media marketing community side of things, and you won't be able to do the actual creation of your game, the actual fine tuning of your work, the stuff that got you into this in the first place. It is better that you approximate meeting people who, as much as possible, see you for you and know where you're at, even if it takes a long time, versus, I don't know, trying to curate to the, rather trying to change yourself for the majority. You're going to end up exhausted. My big example for this is not myself, but a colleague of mine who created Gubat Banwa. I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of that game, but you should really check it out. Makapatag, the creator, made a Discord for himself years ago. And it's 2023. This is about the only time that more international folks are recognizing him for what he does. And he had a lot of angst about it, but also the community he curated were people who consistently saw him for him because he was earnest about what he was trying to do with his game. He wanted a space where he could play test. He wanted a space where he could talk about Filipino concerns, speak his own language, be with folks from Southeast Asia. Very, very simple aspirations. And eventually, people outside of that saw that he was putting his money where his mouth was in their perception, because he kept creating these beautiful games that were Southeast Asian or Filipino inspired. So, did it take him a long time? Yes, but it also built him a really rock strong foundation of a community that liked him for him, believed in his games, and continued to support his work. As with everything, as long as you keep at it, your work will speak for yourself. Okay, oh, this is the last one. Be your own biggest fan. This is super hard. Okay? So I'm going to make it sound easy, but I'm also going to acknowledge it's like, whoo, right? Getting over the shy, anxious, frustration over the lack of perfection in your game is a constant work in progress. But know that if someone follows you, they're fundamentally interested in you as a creator and whatever you do. So you don't need to ask questions like, who are these people? Why are they here? Do they really like me? If they took the time out, honey, to follow your platform and like your stuff, they like you. Or they like what they see at least, and that's enough. So do not hesitate. Talk about your game. Talk about your progress, even if it's you've changed the dice rolls today, or maybe I should do cards, whatever. Talk about what you want. Your hype for your own work is infectious, and also so is your honesty. You can tell people, I'm having it rough these days with my work. This is really difficult. If anybody judges you for that, you honestly didn't need their support to begin with. Okay, cool. Tips and tricks. I love talking about my tips and tricks. These are things that have worked for me. They may not work for you, but baselines are great. Keep these things in mind. Your personal platform is your calling card. If a potential buyer or hirer doesn't like what they see, they won't be coming back. That's a very harsh statement, but again, 9 times out of 10, it's true. Everything you do represents something. Is it an accurate picture? Hell no. Do people acknowledge that it's not an accurate picture? Not all the time. So gotta find that sweet spot. Do not enshrine your personal preferences as universal truths. This is the number one sin in TTRPGs. It's the number one sin of most geek spaces. And this is a little bit spicy, but I want to tell more people about this. Building your brand around outrage, snark, or hashtag positivity comes with great risks. On top of being fundamentally dishonest, please remember what I said about voice. Is this really who you are? I know some folks before thought maybe if I'm just angry all the time, people are just going to write on that because it's easier to get clicks on outrage. And yes, it is easier to get clicks on outrage. But in our industry, everybody watches everyone on social media. And some folks just don't have the time to read into your intent if your impact was not great on them. And positivity, on the other hand, can be super messy. I'm a strong believer in the idea that good people and good people and bad people don't exist. It's just all of us messy people trying to do consistently good actions or consistently choosing bad ones. So with that framing, if you are Mr. Mrs. Positivity, let's just all love each other. Everything will be fine. That's going to sound very trite in a crisis. And the same with outrage or snark. Nobody ever wants to have an asshole coming into their mutual circles or whatnot all the time. It's draining, it's unimpressive, and it's very, very high school. Last, on a more positive note, never forget to thank the people in your community for their kindness and people who praise your game for taking the time out to play or read it. A good review can really make your day. And a lot of folks do this, again, because they came around to you because they're interested in you. They're interested in your work. They already care. Whatever you did made them care. They want to support you more. They want to find ways of engaging with you more. The best way to respond to that, low impact, really, really sweet, also heartening for yourself, is to show gratitude. Without them, it's likely that you'd end up being an anxiety being of like, am I doing this right? Right. So make a shout out occasionally to the fans who've really stuck by you. Now, some more practical advice. Before you post about stuff that isn't related to your game, be it politics or the latest discourse issue on Twitter, whatever, ask yourself, number one, how am I feeling today? Number two, why do I feel the urge to post this particular thing? Number three, is this a good time for me? Is it a good time for anyone? Number four, am I posting to be heard or am I posting to silence someone else? Good action, bad action. Also, in the event that someone reacts badly to your post, do you have the energy and fortitude to handle that? I come from an area of not managing that well for a very long time in TTRPGs. I will tell you, fam, it is not fun to fixate on a bad response for 5 hours when you should have been sleeping. I made that mistake a lot. So I hope a lot less of you will make the same mistake. Last, will you still feel like posting whatever reaction you have in 24 hours? How about 48? Let's extend it. How about 72? How about next week? Your feelings will change. The root of them may not, but your feelings may change. So please take that checklist. Co-opt whatever part of it might be more suited to you. But this has saved me a lot of grief trying to do this. Last, before you respond, especially in response to something kind of sticky or bad, ask yourself, is the person you're responding to a loved one? Is the person you're responding to in the position to adversely affect your brand or your capacity to make games in the future? I'm sorry I have to bring it up, but that's a really important thing since we are in small community spaces these days. Number three, is this person in the position to adversely affect my emotional well-being? Will they keep you up at night or not? Is this person someone who has offered any kind of tangible support to me at all? Because you do have to weigh that. And last, is this conversation even a conversation we should be having on a public platform that also includes your Discord spaces if you're going to curate one for the sake of your community, for playtesting or whatnot? Maybe it's better if you actually talk on DMs. If you know this person and you have their phone number, maybe you can go, hey, can I call and let's talk this out? Maybe it needs to be a string of emails. Maybe it shouldn't even be a discussion in which you can politely say, I don't want to have this conversation anymore. I'm going to shut this down first. Thank you very much. The graceful art of shutting things down is essential to establishing your boundaries and protecting, again, your energy and resources. Okay, this is also more spicy stuff because I see this trend a lot in TTRPGs and I'm not happy with it. Never use someone else's bad time to market yourself. I'm going to be very bitchy concrete and give you an example. OGL went down in D&D. We know how much people got affected by that. So I really don't think it was a good idea for a lot of people on Twitter, while other folks were suffering from losing their jobs, to go, you should just play my game instead. I'm just like so awesome. I'm sure your games were all awesome. But maybe that could have been framed in a friendlier fashion. Because when folks see people doing that, some folks will laugh and that's cool. Other folks are going to feel like you just did the bitchiest thing possible to them. Never, ever, ever brand through negativity. Even if you're not a negative person, it's going to look bad for you. So let me go into the spiel. As someone who's done the full gamut of working on their own projects, working on retainer and working with a company, so I have the full length of experience here, might not be as experienced as others, but I've been around the block. The singular fastest way to make someone think, well, I'm not supporting you, is seeing a period of strife and going, well, you should buy my stuff or hire me instead. Things like, this is why they should just get me. Do you really think a company is going to be impressed by that? Or a publisher, if you're going to give their game? I don't think so. Okay, last bit, accept your feelings. Professional envy, I'm going to repeat that. Professional envy, imposter syndrome, anxiety, resentment, exhaustion, disliking another person, thought, idea, whatever. All those things are normal. And the more you are attuned to your feelings and the potential roots of them, the more professional you can be in public-facing venues and to your own community spaces. It's essential to be honest first with yourself, because that will inform everything. So we can go back to all my hard truths. Passion or survival, intent versus impact. Where am I at right now? How am I feeling? Why am I even doing this? All of that stuff. Accept your feelings. Process them, do whatever you need to in order to consistently understand why you do what you do and how you will translate that to the people around you, especially to your loved ones, especially to your supporters. Cool, self-care time. This is great. Because sweet angels in heaven, devils in hell, and all the cosmic things in between, you will need it. Absolutely. Self-care, great stuff. Doesn't always involve buying makeup platforms. That is a self-dig on me. Sometimes it involves putting the big girl pants on. I always like asking these questions. Why am I here? What are my big 3 priorities? What are the 1 to 3 loves that inform my work? Is this still worth it? So for me, my 3 big priorities are stability, validation, and uplifting. Everything I do, at least at present, involves some aspect of that. Stability because, full disclosure, for some of you may not be aware, I recently migrated from the Philippines because it's a bad way there. And as a gay person, I cannot marry my partner. So at least in the Philippines. So I came to Canada in order to do that. And that informs how I move in TTRPGs, because migration and setting up and marrying somebody. Those are pretty big IRL things. So I might not always have the time for all of the sticky bits that come with community spaces and TTRPGs. And of course, three loves. Do you love money? I know I do. Or you get what I mean, right? Like, what are your three big loves? Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it an ideal? What are they? They're always subject to change too. So it's really good to ask yourself these things every now and then and go like, wait 1 second, why am I doing this, right? If you can't respond to those questions immediately, that's fine. But if you can't respond to those questions yet in a month, I think it might be time to take a break and really engage with why you're here. Okay, cool. Another thing, make a you space. This is a more intimate space, whether it's a Discord or a group chat, or even though you take people out entirely, a journal, whatever. The point of a you space is this is where you can throw your raw everything, unfiltered, full Pam, I guess, if you were talking about myself, without fear of judgment or repercussions. You can get nasty, you can get immature, you can throw a tantrum, whatever, but it has to be a safe you space. This is essential to your mental health. Think of it like one of those rooms full of breakables. You can just kind of take a bath and go nuts on it, right? Like a you space. You need that because the pressure can be immense. The need to constantly poise yourself a certain way might not be easy. You might feel like you're disconnecting from yourself or you're losing yourself, so to speak, in your community. So you need a you space. And last, yay, here's the FF14 analogy. This picture of my wonderful free company people. I'm going to explain what I mean here. Find your static for life and never let them go. Now, in the critically acclaimed MMORPG, a static is FF14 speak for an 8-man party of people who fight bosses together. They discuss strategy, workshop respectfully, and practice open, nuanced conversations and communication. So find your equivalent IRL. Please note, it doesn't have to be 8 people. It could be 4 people. It could be 1 to 2 other people. Just find your Lord of the Rings adventurers, your troop, your scoundrel crew, your static. They don't even have to be TTRPGs, folks. In fact, depending on your speed, I might suggest that you get people who have no idea what's happening in TTRPGs, so you can just talk to them, maybe even have fun contextualizing things, whatever, right? Just find your static. The point is to uplift each other, fight with and for each other, and last but not ever the least, call each other in when necessary. I nearly got into many situations where I could have honestly ruined my own career because I can be a very emotional, firebrandy person. I can be spiteful and I can be petty. And those things aren't great if you're dealing with other people who have their own concerns of which I'll never know. So some people in my real life static had the grace to see those signals and reach out to me quietly and say, hey, Pam, can we talk? And they were just blunt with me. I think you shouldn't do that. This is why. I think you need to remember that sometimes people are just like that. It has nothing to do with you. I think that if you take this route, people aren't going to want to buy your game because honestly, they're going to think you're a bitch. Find people who to be your sword and shield and whatnot, and fight the bosses of your career, your community, your whatnot together. You need them just as much as you need a you space where you could just do whatever you want. Okay, last. This is definitely the last. When all else fails, walk away. I'm dead serious. You will be fine. Everything will still be there tomorrow. This includes community issues. If in your Discord, for example, there was a sticky conversation that went down and people got hurt, if you cannot immediately come up with a solution to it, I remind you as a community manager of many years, it is actually okay to tell your community, hi, I see that something bad really happened here. Let's stop this conversation for now. I will get back to it and then give a definitive date or time. Open the door to communication within your boundaries and go, I'd like to request everybody to step back. So you kind of do the mom thing of rambling people away, right? Eat, hydrate, take a nice bath or shower, sleep. You're going to be okay. So thank you. Buy my stuff, hire me, or collab with me. If not, and this is dead serious, I accept payment in Mog Station items, FF14 game cards, and in-game guild. Yes, I'm serious. I'm very poor in the game right now. That's it for my talk.
Thank you, Pam. The webinar is so amazing. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, you can use the Q&A section to ask your questions, and we'll be waiting for them. So please. And Pam, this was so amazing. I was doing some screenshots of your slides and posting it on our Twitter and Instagram, and I like this quote, and I posted it on our Twitter, that your hype for your own work is infectious. I think this is such a powerful quote of yours, and I'm gonna use it so many times from now on. I'll be quoting you.
Because if you can't be your own hype man, right? Like why are you here? You're going to be your first audience all the time. You are the first pair of eyes that looks at anything you do. We need to learn to be more comfortable with that reality. And it's difficult. It's really difficult, but I feel like it's the most essential step for any creator. You have to be as okay as possible with whatever you make. It's never going to be perfect, and that's fine. Perfection is actually the enemy of creation. The point was the process.
So true. I 100% agree with you. And I also agree that this webinar is going to be useful not only for TTRPG creators, but any creators, because this is all about the process. Any creator, I think, goes through the process of doubting ourselves and then thinking, I am not worthy, my work is not worthy. And just being your own fan is so powerful, and it makes you free, like gives you creativity and freedom of creativity, I think.
I just saw the first question. Okay. Unrelated to the webinar, what's your favorite FF14 class? It's tank. I love tanking, and I think anybody who plays any kind of MMO is probably laughing right now because they're like, yeah, that tracks. I used to be DPS. Specifically, I used to be a Dragoon because I love big lances and I love the thought of fighting and maybe having intimate relationships with dragons, right? So that was my first favorite. Then I got into Savage Raiding, which is the toughest kind of content outside of Ultimate, I think, in FF14. And my group needed a tank. My IRL static needed a tank. So I went for it. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And then I learned Dark Knight because I am an edge lady. I'm all about the edge. So yes, my favorite class is tank.
Does anybody else have any questions about being authentic and staying true to yourself and building a thriving community around your game? And I remember these keywords because because of our social media posts. I think I'll be sleeping today and I'll be seeing these keywords in my sleep. Oh, there's another question from Julia.
Okay. Do you have any advice or just any motivational words for networking or looking for opportunities in TTRPGs while living in a country other than USA, Canada, UK? Without having access to cons or even just job positions that are often North America only, it feels very discouraging to be so far away from everything, most of the gaming studios, etc. Has being based in the Philippines ever been a problem in your career? Okay, I'm going to be really blunt. Yes. I started in TTRPGs because of Big Bad Con in 2019. I got lucky enough to be able to meet people during the convention and come back home, and they helped me network further, which contributed to a bit of I guess a escalation in receiving jobs and etc. So I'm honestly one of the lucky ones that managed to sustain myself through commissions in the time of pandemic. So before I get into the motivational words, I will get into the realities, of course. Yes, it's really hard. It can feel very isolating. You will run up consistently against the barriers that come with not having the privilege of being in a space with a culture that still unfortunately believes that in person is better. I think we all have to work on that a little bit. So my biggest advice to you would be continue to try to shoot for any opportunity that is open to folks from outside of Canada and North America. Look for scholarships to conventions that can subsidize or fully pay for your plane ticket, your food, the works. More cons are trying to do that now. They can open a lot of doors for you. Also, build intimate connections with people whom you feel see you for you. And honestly, any level of those connections really helps, whether they're big level company people or they're fans. You'd be surprised at how open and engaging someone is and how folks in this space will go out of your way to really save your bacon. When I was in debt a lot, I did have a lot of people coming out of nowhere and telling me, hey, there's an opportunity here. You want to take it? Or do you need a little bit of money to get you by? It's a thing. So I hope that helps. I'm really not going to shy away from the fact that it's hard. Okay, another question. How do you feel about having to create a community in a foreign language? How do you work around that? I always find that hard since English is not my mother tongue. I want to create certain spaces and I feel like you're in between all the time. I think that if we're coming from the perspective, like our mutual perspectives, right, where I'm from the Philippines and you are from Latin America, I remember, it's that's part, I think, of having one of your you spaces. You want to feel comfortable enough to just talk the way you want to and be heard, right? Because language is an essential part of us. It's also our culture. It's our, I guess it's just who we are, right? So I do think it's essential to make that. And then if you do have a community that's more English facing, I would advise that in your guidelines, tell people that this is how you do things. Sometimes you will lapse into your own language. If they have a problem with that, then once again, full Pam mode, I suppose. Are they really worth keeping or not? If they're going to make fun of you for something that is essential to who you are, right? Those are things you have to ask yourself. Like, how high quality is this support? Do they really see me for me, or do they see a manufactured version of me that they made in their heads? If it's a community space of yours, you should make the rules, and that includes speaking as you want to speak. So I hope that helps. You might notice in some discords I'm in, I do have that soft rule where I'm going to lapse into Tagalog whenever the hell I want. You need a translation, I'll tell you. But if you can't take that, doors over there. Thank you for being here. I hope those are all good.
Thanks to the webinar participants for asking amazing questions. And thank you, Pam, again, for giving so deep answers. And I really appreciate you doing this webinar today.
Well, thank you for having me as well. It was great.
Does someone else have any questions? So I think this is the last chance for us to answer some questions. And while we're waiting for some last questions in the Q&A, just a reminder to that the recording of this webinar will be sent you via email, and it will also be posted on our Creator Hub. You can also check out other webinar recordings in there, and the link is in the chat, or you can just go to our website and find the Creator Hub in there, whichever is more convenient for you. So I guess if we don't have any questions, then thank you everyone again for participating, for joining us today on this amazing, very, very insightful webinar. It was truly interesting to watch. Thank you, Pam. And I guess see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon as well.
I think we can stop the recording right now, if that's okay.